Lewis McLane was Delaware's 15th senator. He served from March 4, 1827, until he resigned on April 29, 1829. McLane was born in Smyrna, Delaware. Fun fact, a few years before he was born, his father, Alan McLane, had changed the spelling of the family name, quote, to avoid confusion with that renegade Scot serving the Hanoverian king. It was originally McLane, or McLane, but Alan changed it to McLane. Lewis McLane studied law under Senator James A. Bayard and set up a law practice in Wilmington in 1807. He served in the War of 1812 with the Wilmington Artillery Company, and in 1816 he was elected to Congress, ultimately serving 10 years in the House, where he became kind of a big deal. He was chairman of the Ways and Means Committee. Trust me, that's a big deal. Also, he became good friends with Martin Van Buren, which will come into play shortly. In 1827, McLane was elected to the Senate to succeed Thomas Clayton. For the next year and a half, McLane worked hard to support Andrew Jackson in the 1828 presidential election, and after Jackson won, McLane expected to be rewarded with a presidential cabinet appointment, which was the style at the time. Perhaps a bit overconfident, McLane resigned on April 29, 1829 in preparation for his new job. But the job offer didn't happen, at least not at first. McLane had to wait 6 very long months, but finally his old friend Van Buren, who was close with Jackson, convinced the new president to appoint McLane minister to the UK. He held that post for 2 years, then returned to Washington when Jackson, again probably at Van Buren's urging, gave him a better post, Secretary of the Treasury. In just 2 years on the job, McLane played a huge role in some pretty big stories. Jackson's fight with the Bank of the United States regarding its controversial recharter, and the South Carolina nullification crisis. Both of those are really interesting stories, but this is a short, and it's already too long, so we're gonna keep moving. Maybe I'll give Lewis McLane a deep dive biography video. I'll put him on the list. After 2 years as Secretary of the Treasury, McLane was moved to Secretary of State. It was the job McLane had been wanting ever since he left the Senate in 1829, but in 1834 he was working with Jackson on a deal involving France, forget the details, way too complicated to go into here, and Martin Van Buren, who was now the vice president, interfered to change Jackson's mind about part of it. McLane was so mad he resigned and went home, and he never spoke to Van Buren again. After a few years as a railroad executive, McLane returned to Washington when President James Polk appointed him to his old post of minister to the UK. McLane did that for a year before returning to the railroad and retiring to Cecil County, Maryland. He died in Baltimore in 1857. His son, Robert McLane, became a congressman from Maryland, serving non-consecutive terms 28 years apart. That might be some kind of record. I should look into that. And his grandson, also called Robert McLane, became the youngest mayor in the history of Baltimore in 1903, then died suddenly in 1904 by suicide that might have actually been murder. Definitely doing a McLane deep dive video.